toxic volcano smoke, extreme heights, and literal bird spit. All things people deal with every day to make money. Here are some of the most dangerous jobs. Hey everyone, my name is Hisham Khan and welcome to Income Over Outcome, your go-to source for all the college and career resources that you need. The jobs I'm about to talk about today literally put people's lives at risk, and they're not the typical things you would think about, like being in the military. I'm willing to bet that most of you haven't heard of a single job on this list. So before I get into it, make sure you drop your guesses in the comments. If any of you guess right, I'll be really impressed and you might get a surprise from me. Be sure to stick to the end of the video because the last jobs are also some of the weirdest in the world. And trust me, you don't want to miss it. One job that literally kills you is sulfur mining. People in sulfur mines usually don't live past 50 years old. That's 22 whole years less than the average lifespan. See, in countries like Indonesia, sulfur is usually found by volcanoes and hot springs because it needs a really harsh, smoky, and hot environment to be made in. It's actually wild. People who mine sulfur work in active volcanoes and destroy their lungs because they have to constantly breathe in toxic fumes. They usually don't have any protection, so it's really common for their skin to be covered in scars and burns. I mean, imagine working in over 100-degree conditions where you're constantly surrounded by toxic particles and poisonous smoke. Most of us wouldn't be able to last a minute, but sulfur miners have to spend hours every single day in that environment. To make matters even worse, miners are paid by the weight of what they mine. That means as they collect the sulfur, they put as much as they possibly can into buckets, which might not seem that bad until you realize they have to walk all that back down in really rocky and steep conditions to a weighing station. And it's not like a pleasurable hike you would go on a Sunday afternoon. Sulfur miners often have over 200 pounds of sulfur on their back and have to walk it for miles down mountains and hills. And the reason they have to go through all that work is because sulfur is one of the most important materials out there. People like you and I need it to live. It's used in almost anything you can think about, from matches, fireworks, and gunpowder to detergent, paper, and even batteries. And because of that, the sulfur industry is worth a ton of money, almost around $13 billion. But unfortunately for miners, they don't get to see any of that money. Companies pay miners just around 9 cents per kilo, and with around 200 pounds of sulfur a day, that's around just $17 a day. Which is insane considering that sulfur mining is one of the hardest and riskiest jobs in the world. Another really dangerous job are salt farmers or miners. Some of the world's best salt is found in the Indian desert, and the process for making it is extremely long and hard. Entire families travel to the desert every single year just to make salt. They usually get to the desert around October and don't leave until April because the process of mining and harvesting salt is super long. The first step is to find salt underground. They don't have any fancy equipment, which means they have to manually dig with shovels up to 30 feet. Once they're deep underground, they'll find water that has salt in it. Then they have to pump all that back above ground and then manually make salt pans with their bare hands to take the salt out of the water. Not only is it hard work, but they have to wake up super early in the morning to make sure they don't work later on in the day when it's unbearably hot in the desert. Life expectancy for people with this job is just around 60 years, because not only do they have to face extreme temperatures, but they're dealing with really acidic materials in a salty environment, which can cause some really bad skin problems. A lot of the people with this job even go blind because of the constant sun exposure and reflection of the sun off of the desert sand. When they leave in April, each family usually has around 1,000 tons of salt, which is an insane amount, and they can sell each ton for around $2 to $4. That means all those months of backbreaking work would earn a family just $4,000 in a good year. What's wild is that if you go to a grocery store, you'll find a little box of salt for like $5. Which is more than what companies are buying entire tons for from these people. And even in a country like India where things are generally cheaper, earning $4,000 a year isn't that great of a living. But if you want to learn all about jobs that can make you a great living, then hit that subscribe button, make sure you like this video. But to be fair, salt mining isn't that horrible everywhere. They have salt mines in the US, and the job is much less labor intensive. But that's because we have really good equipment and also safety laws. But in general, salt mining is still not the safest field. In the US, salt mines can be over 1,000 feet underground. That's just as deep as the Empire State Building is high. And miners have to go down there every single day through these narrow tunnels and literally blast out salt crystals. If they aren't careful, they can get really badly injured. But the pay is not nearly as bad as salt miners in India. In a super busy season where there's a lot of demand, salt miners in the US can make upwards of $80,000. Let me know in the comments if you think that's worth it. Now, if you've paid attention to any health trends over the last 5 years, then you probably know what an acai bowl is and just how expensive they are. I swear I paid $20 for one just the other day. For those of you who don't know, an acai bowl is basically a smoothie with a ton of bananas, berries, basically whatever fruits you want can be in it. But the base of it is a cream made out of the acai palm, which is only found in South America. And we wouldn't have these super tasty, healthy bowls if it wasn't for all the hard work of acai farmers. See, most of the world's acai is found in the Amazon rainforest in trees that are over 50 feet high. And acai farmers have to climb these trees without a lot of equipment just to harvest the fruit. On top of the height, look at just how thin the trunks of these trees are. One wrong movement and your life is gonna end. Which is why acai farming is an extremely dangerous job. Companies pay these workers just 20 cents per pound of the fruit that they harvest. That means in a whole year, most people won't even make $1,000 from acai farming. That's absolutely crazy given how much acai sells for in the US. But these farmers don't have much of a choice but to sell it for cheap because the food goes bad really fast, so they have to sell it as soon as they harvest it. Companies know that and take advantage of it by buying the acai for really cheap and then selling it to you and I for insane profits. Next up, we have limestone miners. Limestone is one of the most important rocks in the world because we use it to make everything from cement and glass to plastic and tiles. Limestone miners in Egypt travel deep into mountains and use these super dangerous sharp machines to cut limestone. The machines are extremely loud and echo throughout the entire mountain. And a lot of these workers don't have proper ear protection and risk going deaf. Even worse, as they cut the limestone, powder goes everywhere and they inhale it, which is horrible. Breathing it over time will give you horrible lung conditions and a lot of other sicknesses. Not too long ago, the life expectancy for people with this job was just 45 years old. That's lower than any other job on this list. For all of that effort and being a part of one of the most dangerous workplaces in the world, limestone miners earn just $6 a day. And sometimes companies feel generous and give their workers $3 on top of that for food. Even in the US, limestone mining is extremely dangerous. Of course, it's not nearly as bad as it is in some other countries, but you have all the risks that come with working a mining job. On top of that, the process of mining limestone can be really toxic. There's a lot of well-known cases of limestone mining contaminating water supplies and wildlife habitats. On average though, limestone miners in the US earn around $20 an hour, which is much better than their counterparts in Egypt. Now this has got to be one of the weirdest jobs I'm gonna talk about today, and that's bird nest harvesters. It's a job that's basically only in the Philippines where they have this really rare bird nest made out of bird saliva. And the locals there believe that the bird saliva is really healthy for you, so they make soup out of it. Just 2 pounds of it is worth $2,900, but getting to these nests can be really dangerous because they're up way high in trees. Usually it's a group of just a few guys that go out to remote islands and they literally build a ladder as they're climbing up the tree. Because they're so far from the cities, if there's an accident, the odds of survival are really low. Once they pull the nest down from trees, they sell them to their local city hall, who then sells them to private customers around the world. Oddly enough, over the last few years, the demand for this bird's nest soup has actually gone up. So for people who like the thrill of the job, it's not a bad option. But you should check out my video on tech jobs that pay over 6 figures without coding if you want to learn about jobs that can earn you way more than the ones I spoke about and are not nearly as dangerous. Be sure to hit that like button and subscribe if you haven't already, and I'll see you next time. But until then, peace.